What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back with another video, and today we're going to be looking at the 2019 Stanley Cup odds. Now, the Stanley Cup just ended last night at the time I'm recording this video. Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals finally got that Stanley Cup, but we're already looking past the offseason. We're looking at the odds for the 2019 Stanley Cup. So I thought it'd be a lot of fun just to go through these. These aren't like set in stone, like they're the best odds. This is what's going to happen. It's just fun to see right after the Stanley Cup, to see what people are saying, to see if people think that Washington can repeat. Let's see if your favorite team is going to be a Stanley Cup contender next year. Let's check these odds, and I'm not going to act like I'm some betting pro and some odds pro. We're just going to go through this. We're going to look at it together. I'm going to put it up on the screen for you, and we're going to look at the odds for who is going to win the 2019 Stanley Cup. So if you're new, make sure you subscribe. Love to have more hockey conversations with you. Join the squad. Let's get to 3,000 subscribers. Alright, and click that like button if you like this video. So let's pull up the first one. I thought I would start off with I believe it was from Myrtle who tweeted this out, James Myrtle, and I think he said it was from Bodog. And these are the 2019 Stanley Cup odds, and I believe there's only 22 teams on this list. The next list will have every single team, but I thought it was cool just to start off with one that had, like, you know, I think it's 22 teams that are on this list. So the odds to win the Stanley Cup, according to Bodog, I believe that's where he said it was from, has Tampa Bay as the odds to win at 9-1, and Tampa Bay was my pick to win the Stanley Cup this year. I thought they had the team to do it, and they do have a fantastic team with a great future. They're still going to be contenders, and I think it's realistic to think that they could be a favorite for next season as well. And that's not, you know, I'm not dissing Washington. I'm super happy. It's just, if I was taking an educated guess, I thought it might have been the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it looks like they have the odds for the next Stanley Cup. And then next up at 10-1 is four teams according to this list: the Boston Bruins, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I would actually have the Winnipeg Jets with better odds than any of those teams that are at 10-1. I am a Leafs fan, but at the same time, I think Winnipeg might be a little bit ahead of them in terms of being a Stanley Cup winning or a contender for next season, unless the Leafs make another big move. But I did like the way the Jets played this year. Vegas did play really good against them, but I think the Jets have more to prove, and I think they will be a contender next year. Boston, that doesn't surprise me. I definitely do think that they could be a contender next year. McAvoy looks real good. Pastrnak is only getting better, and then you obviously have Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand, who are both fantastic players. Marchand when he's not doing the dirty stuff, you know. But those odds make sense. Vegas being back up there at the odds is hilarious. And I mean back up there by once the playoffs started, people had Vegas to win the cup as well, and they were pretty damn close. But Vegas being up there, I think, is awesome, because last year nobody would have had them up there. Then at 11-1, you have the Nashville Predators and the Pittsburgh Penguins, who definitely could win the Stanley Cup next season. I think both of their windows of opportunity are still open. Again, you have two fantastic hockey teams that, you know, are literally still have their core intact. Then they could be Cup champions next year just as easily as they could have this year. And I think Nashville actually has a better chance, but their odds are at the same. Then you have the Capitals at 14-1 to repeat, which is pretty cool. I think that their odds may go up as the season goes on next year, because I think the Capitals still will be pretty good, and I feel like they might be very, very happy with their cup win and the city and the cap going up too. Everybody's going to be excited. Maybe they'll spend right to the cap again and try to go for a back-to-back, which would make sense. Then you have the Oilers at 18-1. I think the Oilers have to be much better this year, and I think that their odds last year were much better than this, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kind of disappointing to see where they are, because they should have been better last season. The Anaheim Ducks at 22-1 and the Blackhawks at 22-1. Now, this confuses me a little bit. I don't see either of these guys being better than some of the teams that are listed below them. I think that the Ducks and Blackhawks definitely have good teams, but I also feel like they might be in a retooling phase this season. I think that they're both looking to get better, but at the same time, I think the Blackhawks have a lot of work to do, and that's, I can't believe I'm even saying that, and that might be an unpopular opinion, but I do think that they probably won't be better than a team up next like the Blue Jackets or even the Stars. So the Blue Jackets are at 25-1 odds, and so are the Stars, both teams that will have to get better this offseason. The Columbus is a pretty young team, and I think the Stars will be in on some free agents. Quite possibly they might be working the trades as well, so we'll have to see. Then you have the Flames at 28-1 and the Flyers at 28-1. Now, both of these teams, again, these two teams are going to be very interesting this offseason because the Flames do not have a lot of picks to work with, and the Flyers definitely are on a uphill going towards making a playoff being better in the playoffs, making it farther into the playoffs, hopefully going a couple rounds next year, because I think that their fan base is ready for it. I think that the team is ready for it, and I think they'll be much better. And going back to the Flames as well, they were disappointing this year. They should have been much better. Then you have the Kings at 30-1 and the Wild at 30-1 and the Sharks at 30-1. I definitely would have had the Sharks a little bit higher. I think the Wild and Kings are kind of right where they need to be, but I feel like the Sharks definitely could have had better odds up where maybe around the Dallas section. These odds would definitely change if Thornton left as well, in my opinion. The Evander Kane signing too, probably, even though the contract was bad, he is a good player. I'm pretty sure he will help them get better next year as well. Then you have the Avalanche at 40-1, the Panthers at 40-1, the Devils at 40-1, and the Blues at 40-1. I would give the Blues better odds. They almost made the playoffs this year, and they were basically a seller at the deadline. The Devils are probably going to get much better this year too. The Panthers are a team that should be really good next year. They were quietly a good team this year. And the Avalanche, of course, surprised a lot of people by making the playoffs this year. I think that they're going to be pretty good next year as well. So the next one I'm going to put up there, so that's the first one. There was only 22 teams on that one. The next one is from Odds Shark, and I put the tweet up there just to show you guys. Now, this is a different system. This is plus 1,000 plus 11 instead of 9-1 odds, whatever. It's if you just look at the list, it's basically showing you top to bottom who they think is the contenders for the Stanley Cup or who will have the best odds to win the Cup next year. So Tampa Bay, again, on this list is number one. Tampa fans are probably going, no, not this again. We're favorites to win the Stanley Cup. But that's a good thing, but it's also a lot of heavy lifting for you guys because all season long you're just going to be waiting for those playoffs and hoping that you guys can prove yourself, much like the Capitals did this season. In this list, they have Nashville second at plus 1,100, and again, that's not wrong to me. I think that Nashville should definitely be up there. I think that they will definitely be an elite team again next season and definitely have a shot at the Cup. Then they have Pittsburgh, Boston, and Toronto at plus 1,200, as well as Vegas, Washington, and Winnipeg is plus 1,200. That group right there is definitely a playoff group. You're going to see probably every single one of those teams in the playoffs next year. I don't want to say this, but I have a video coming out later. I'm actually later in a couple weeks probably. I'm not going to spoil what I was about to say, but one of these teams I don't think is making the playoffs next year. I think Boston and Pittsburgh definitely deserve to be in there. Toronto as well. I think Vegas proved themselves this year. Washington, Cup champ. You kind of have to give them good odds. Winnipeg, of course, looking to be a dominant force in the playoffs once again next season. And I think, again, Winnipeg, I got to give them more credit. I really do think they have a legitimate shot. I think I would put them with the same odds as Nashville, even though it's not a huge jump. I really think Winnipeg has a good chance next year. I think that they want some vengeance. Then you see Edmonton at this list at plus 1,800. Edmonton, again, they're kind of falling in the just out of the best odds list when it comes to, that block of like the first 5, 6, 7 teams or whatever. They're kind of falling out of that list. And I think that Edmonton is going to have a lot to prove this year. And it's looking like these odds are saying, hey, listen, we don't believe in you guys as much as we did last season at the beginning of the year. Then you've got Anaheim, Chicago, and San Jose, again, tied there at plus 2,200. Again, we've briefly talked about them as well. Calgary, Columbus, and Dallas at plus 2,500. So those teams right there, it's great that you group those three guys together because I want to see all three of those teams get a lot better, and I think that those odds make sense. The Kings and Wild again at plus 2,500. That makes sense to me. Philadelphia at plus 2,800. They're not getting a ton of love. I think that they'll have a little bit better odds than people think. Colorado and St. Louis being tied I think is also hilarious. I would give St. Louis the edge as well there. Colorado can make an impact. Again, these odds will change if people sign there or if they make trades in the offseason. These numbers could definitely change. Florida and New Jersey, again, two teams not getting a ton of love that could easily be cup contenders with better moves this year. And again, that sounds ridiculous, but I really do think that Florida could be a sleeper team next year. And I think the New Jersey Devils, with the money that they could spend this offseason, could make a big splash. Carolina, Montreal, the Islanders, and the Rangers at plus 5,000. Again, this is where you're getting towards a team that probably aren't going to win. Buffalo and Detroit at plus 6,600, and then Arizona, Ottawa, and Vancouver at plus 7,500. And honestly, I think Vancouver might be a little bit of a sleeper team to, at least make a decent push towards possibly making it to the playoffs. And I think people will think I'm absolutely crazy for that, but with all the young talent they've got put together, people said the Leafs were looking, like they were going to be bad with all those young guys in the lineup. Let's see if Vancouver, some of those young guys, can make the jump. So hopefully you guys liked this video. Just wanted to go through the odds for the 2019 Stanley Cup very early, literally the day after the cup was presented. It hasn't even been 24 hours. So let me know what you guys think. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. Love to have more hockey conversations with you. I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Peace.